Layla woke up to the sound of her alarm buzzing loudly on her nightstand. The sunlight was just beginning to creep through the thin curtains of her small apartment, casting soft patterns on the walls. She groaned and rubbed her eyes, feeling the familiar ache in her shoulders from yesterday's long shift at the cafe. Every morning seemed to start the same way, yet somehow, she hoped today would feel a little different. She got out of bed and shuffled to the bathroom, glancing at her reflection in the mirror. Her hair was tangled, and her eyes were still puffy from lack of sleep. But there was a spark inside her, a quiet determination that wouldn't go away no matter how tired she felt. She brushed her teeth and splashed cold water on her face, hoping it would wake her up enough to face the day. She thought about the small breakfast she would make probably. Toast and tea before heading out, as Layla stepped out of her apartment building. She was greeted by the usual hustle and bustle of the city. Cars honked as they weaved through traffic. People hurried along the sidewalks. And the distant sound of a train moving through the metro tunnels added a steady rhythm to the morning. She pulled her coat tighter around her and started walking toward the metro station, her bag slung over one shoulder. Today, like every other day, she was in a hurry. She didn't want to be late for her shift, even if it meant rushing through the crowded streets. At the metro station, the crowd was thick. People pushed past one another, trying to reach the turnstiles and get to their trains. Layla maneuvered through the sea of commuters, clutching her bag tightly as she tried to avoid bumping into anyone. She noticed faces buried in phones, others talking loudly on their devices, and a few people simply staring blankly into the distance. Everyone seemed so focused on their own lives, their own worries, their own routines. Layla felt a pang of loneliness as she moved along. She was part of the crowd, yet somehow invisible. She glanced at the clock hanging near the turnstiles and groaned softly. The train would be here any minute, and she was cutting it close. As she stepped forward, her eyes caught something out of the ordinary. Parked along the curb outside the station was a Rolls-Royce, its shiny black surface reflecting the morning sun. It seemed almost unreal, like it had been placed there to stand out from the ordinary gray of the city streets. People walked past it without even noticing, but Layla couldn't look away. She had never seen a car like that up close, and it sparked something in her, a mix of admiration and longing. She imagined what it would be like to ride in a car like that, to feel the smooth leather seats, to drive through the city without a single worry about money or time. It felt like a dream, one that was so far from her reality that it almost made her chest ache. She shook her head, telling herself to focus on the train. Dreams were nice, but she had responsibilities. And she couldn't afford to get lost in fantasies, not today. As she moved toward the turnstiles, the doors of the Rolls-Royce opened, and a man stepped out. He was older, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, and carried himself with a calm, quiet authority. His presence seemed to command the attention of the street, yet he looked entirely at ease, as if he belonged there more than anyone else. Layla instinctively took a step back, feeling a mixture of curiosity and caution. There was something about him that felt different, something she couldn't quite put into words. The train arrived with a screech, and people began pushing and shoving to get inside. Layla tried to weave her way through the crowd, but in her haste, she stumbled slightly, almost colliding with the man in the Rolls-Royce. He reached out and steadied her with a firm but gentle hand. "Ah, are you okay?" he asked, his voice calm and steady. Layla nodded quickly, her face flushing slightly. "Yes, thank you. I wasn't paying attention." He looked at her for a moment, his eyes studying her with an intensity that made her feel like he could see more than just her face. Then, unexpectedly, he asked, "Do you want your life to change?" The question hit her like a jolt of electricity. She froze, unsure of how to respond. It wasn't a casual question, and it wasn't a small one either. It was the kind of question that made you stop and really think about yourself, about your life, about the choices you were making. Her heart started to race, and she glanced around to see if anyone else had heard it. The crowd was still pushing and shoving, the train doors closing. And yet it felt as if the world had slowed down just for this moment. Layla hesitated, feeling a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. I don't know, she admitted softly. "I guess. I want things to be better, but I don't know if that's possible." The man smiled, a small knowing smile that didn't feel condescending but rather understanding. "It is possible," he said simply. "Sometimes all it takes is one choice, one step in a different direction." He introduced himself as someone who helped people reach their potential, someone who invested not just in businesses, but in people who had the drive to change their lives if given the chance. Layla felt a strange mix of skepticism and hope. It sounded almost too good to be true. Yet there was something in his eyes, something genuine, that made her want to believe him. The train doors closed, and the crowd began moving along, but Layla found herself rooted to the spot. She had never experienced anything like this before. Complete stranger asking a question that made her feel seen, understood, and challenged all at once. She thought about her life, about the endless days of work and exhaustion, about the dreams she kept tucked away because they seemed impossible. And now here was a man offering her a chance, doorway to something different, something better. She took a deep breath and looked at him. "What do I have to do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. He explained that he could guide her, teach her open doors that were normally closed to people like her. But it wouldn't be easy. She would have to work harder than she ever had, push herself in ways she hadn't imagined, and trust herself even when things got difficult. It was an opportunity that could change everything, but it required commitment, courage, and faith. Layla felt a surge of determination. She thought about the mornings waking up tired, the long hours at the cafe, the feeling of being invisible in the crowd. She thought about the spark she had felt when she saw the Rolls-Royce, about the longing she had carried inside her for something more. And she realized that maybe, just maybe, this was the moment she had been waiting for. The moment to say yes to life, to take a step toward change. With a small nod, she agreed. "I'm ready," she said. The man smiled again, this time broader, as if he had been expecting her answer all along. "Good," he said. "Your life is about to change. But remember, it's up to you to make the most of it." The Cephasai. FI is Saturday FOS, so Layla took one last look at the metro station. At the familiar streets she had walked 1,000 times, and felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. She didn't know exactly what lay ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt hope, a real, tangible hope that things could be different. She had taken the first step, and now the journey was hers to embrace. The morning continued around her, people hurrying to their trains, cars honking, and life moving forward as usual. But for Layla, everything had shifted. The ordinary day had transformed into the beginning of something extraordinary. One question, one choice, one moment had opened a door she never thought possible, and she stepped through it with courage and curiosity, ready to discover what her life could truly become. Layla left the metro station feeling a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. Her mind was buzzing with questions and possibilities. She couldn't stop thinking about the man in the Rolls-Royce and the question he had asked her. It had been so simple, yet it had stirred something deep inside her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She walked through the city streets, her steps quick and purposeful, her bag swinging by her side. Every now and then she glanced back at the station, half expecting to see him waiting there, but he was gone, leaving only the memory of his words and the promise they carried. As she walked, Layla tried to make sense of it all. She had spent so many years feeling trapped in the routine of her life, thinking that nothing would ever change. The cafe where she worked had been her world for as long as she could remember, a place of steady income but little opportunity. She loved her colleagues, and she liked the customers she saw every day, but she wanted more. She wanted to feel that sense of purpose that went beyond serving coffee and cleaning tables. And now, this man had appeared out of nowhere and offered her a chance to step into a completely different world. Layla's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of her phone buzzing in her pocket. It was a message from her best friend, someone she had known since childhood. Her friend was checking in, asking how her morning had been and whether she was ready for her shift. Layla smiled faintly and typed a reply, saying that everything was fine. But as she sent the message, she felt a flicker of doubt. Could she really take this step? Was she ready to leave behind the life she had known, to trust a stranger with her future? By the time she reached the cafe, Layla's heart was pounding. She greeted her manager and colleagues with a polite smile, but her mind was elsewhere. The familiar sights and sounds of the cafe, espresso machines steaming, milk frothing. The chatter of regular customers felt distant and unimportant compared to the possibilities she had glimpsed earlier. She served the morning rush with mechanical efficiency, her hands moving automatically while her mind replayed the man's question over and over. Do you want your life to change? During a short break, Layla stepped outside and took a deep breath. The city air was crisp and cool, carrying the scent of fresh bread from a nearby bakery. She watched people walking past, some laughing with friends, others lost in their own thoughts. She realized that for most of them, life was moving forward in a steady, predictable rhythm. And here she was, on the edge of stepping into something completely unpredictable. It was terrifying, but also thrilling. She remembered the way he had looked at her, the intensity in his eyes that made her feel both nervous and understood. There was something about him that suggested he had seen this moment coming, that he knew exactly what to ask and when to ask it. And yet, he hadn't pushed her or pressured her. He had simply offered a question, leaving the choice entirely in her hands. Layla realized that it wasn't just about opportunity. It was about her willingness to take the leap, to believe in herself even when it felt uncertain. After her shift ended, Layla made her way back to the spot where the Rolls-Royce had been parked. The street was quieter now, the morning rush giving way to a calmer pace. She scanned the area, hoping to catch a glimpse of him, but the car was gone, and the man was nowhere in sight. She felt a pang of disappointment, but also a strange sense of determination. She couldn't wait around for miracles. She had to act. Over the next few days, Layla couldn't focus on anything else. She continued her work at the cafe, interacting with customers and colleagues, but her mind was always drifting back to the encounter. She thought about the promise of change, the idea that her life could be different if she was willing to step up and take responsibility. She started making small changes in her daily routine, trying to be more organized and proactive, practicing confidence in her interactions, and reading about topics that had always interested her but she had never had time for. One afternoon, she returned to the same street, hoping for another chance to see him. She noticed the same gleaming luxury cars parked along the avenue, but none of them were his. She watched people rushing by, each absorbed in their own world, and felt a strange mix of patience and frustration. The encounter had left her restless, craving direction and mentorship, someone who could guide her through the unknown. Then, unexpectedly, she saw him again. The same man stepped out of a car, looking calm and composed as if he had been expecting her. This time he didn't speak immediately. He simply nodded in recognition, and Layla felt a shiver run down her spine. He gestured for her to come closer, and she hesitated only for a moment before walking toward him. The world around them seemed to blur, the noise of the street fading into the background. He asked her to sit in the passenger seat of the Rolls-Royce. Layla felt a surge of excitement and nervousness. She had never been in such a car before, and the interior was unlike anything she had imagined. Soft leather seats, polished wood panels, and a quiet luxury that felt almost surreal. The car moved smoothly as they drove through the city, and Layla felt a sense of calm wash over her. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a life without limits, a life where opportunity and hard work could create real change. During the drive, he explained more about who he was and what he did. He wasn't just a wealthy businessman. He was someone who believed in nurturing potential, in giving people a chance to rise above their circumstances if they had the determination and willingness to work hard. He asked Layla about her dreams, her fears, and her vision for the future. She answered honestly, her words tumbling out as she realized how long it had been since anyone had truly asked about her aspirations. He listened intently, nodding and offering insights, gently challenging her to think beyond her current limitations. He asked questions that forced her to reflect deeply. What did she truly want from life? What was she willing to sacrifice to achieve it? How could she turn her skills and passions into something meaningful? Layla felt a mix of exhilaration and fear. It was the kind of conversation that could change a person, the kind that made her feel both small in the grand scheme of things and capable of so much more. By the time the car stopped, Layla felt a new sense of clarity. The man explained that this was just the beginning, that she had a chance to transform her life, but it would require effort, persistence, and belief in herself. He offered her a choice: to take this opportunity seriously and commit to learning and growth, or to continue on the path she had been on, comfortable but limited. Layla thought about her life, the long shifts at the cafe, the routine mornings at the metro, the dreams she had tucked away. She knew what she had to do. She looked at him, determination shining in her eyes. "I'm ready," she said. He nodded, a small approving smile on his face. "Good," he said. "Then let's begin." From that moment, Layla's world started to change. The ordinary streets, the metro station, the cafe, they all remained. But she moved through them with a new sense of purpose. She began to see possibilities where she had once seen obstacles, opportunities where she had once seen dead ends. Each day brought a new challenge, a new lesson, and a chance to grow into the person she had always wanted to be. And though she knew the journey would not be easy, she felt ready, knowing that the first step had already been taken, and the rest of the path was hers to walk. Layla felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She stepped into the new chapter of her life. The man in the Rolls-Royce had given her more than an opportunity. He had given her a challenge, a chance to step out of her comfort zone and discover what she was truly capable of. The first few days were the hardest. She had to learn to manage her time, balance her existing responsibilities at the cafe, and begin the work he had suggested. She wasn't just learning about business or success, she was learning about herself, her strengths and her weaknesses. The man had given her a notebook, simple and unassuming, and told her to write down everything: her goals, her fears, her daily achievements, and even her mistakes. At first, Layla thought it seemed unnecessary, but she soon realized the notebook was more than paper and ink. It was a mirror that reflected her own growth. She began writing each morning before her shift, capturing small victories, ideas that struck her mind, and questions about the world she had never dared to ask before. One evening, after a long day at the cafe, Layla sat in her small apartment, the notebook open in front of her. She wrote about the people she had seen on the street today, about the struggles of balancing work and ambition, and about the fear that sometimes crept into her heart. Fear of failing, of being rejected, of not being good enough. But she also wrote about her determination, the fire she felt when she thought about what could be possible. Writing became a ritual, a way to make sense of the whirlwind that her life was becoming. The man arranged for her to attend meetings and workshops, introducing her to people who had walked similar paths and succeeded. These sessions were overwhelming at first. Layla often felt out of place among confident, polished individuals who seemed to know exactly where they were going. But she reminded herself that she belonged there too, that she had been given this chance for a reason. Slowly, she began to find her voice, speaking up in discussions, asking questions, and contributing her own ideas. Each small step boosted her confidence, reinforced the belief that she could achieve more than she had ever imagined. One day, the man asked Layla to prepare a presentation on a small project she had been working on. The idea was simple, but the preparation was demanding. Layla spent hours researching, practicing, and revising, often staying up late into the night. She worried about making mistakes, about embarrassing herself, but she also felt a thrill she had never felt before. The thought that she was creating something of value, that her ideas could have an impact, filled her with purpose. When the day of the presentation arrived, Layla stood in front of a room full of professionals and took a deep breath. Her hands trembled slightly, but she began speaking, sharing her vision with honesty and clarity. The room was silent as they listened, and she felt a wave of nervous anticipation. After she finished, the man smiled and nodded, and the others began asking questions, giving feedback, and encouraging her to refine her ideas further. It was an exhilarating experience, one that left her feeling proud and motivated to push even harder. Alongside her professional growth, Layla began to notice changes in herself personally. She became more disciplined in her habits, more mindful of how she spent her time, and more aware of her own emotions and reactions. She learned to handle criticism without letting it crush her spirit, and to celebrate small achievements without waiting for big victories. Each day brought new lessons, some difficult, some joyful, but all contributing to her transformation. The man continued to challenge her in unexpected ways. One afternoon, he asked her to shadow him during his daily meetings and observe how he interacted with clients and partners. Layla watched closely as he negotiated deals, listened carefully to concerns, and made decisions with confidence and clarity. She noticed how he treated people with respect, how he valued integrity over shortcuts, and how he remained calm even under pressure. It was a masterclass in professionalism, and Layla absorbed every detail, asking questions and taking notes. Over time, Layla started implementing what she learned into her own work and life. She took initiative at the cafe, suggesting new ideas to improve efficiency and customer satisfaction. Her colleagues noticed her energy and dedication, and some even started seeking her advice. She felt a sense of pride that was new to her, quiet satisfaction in knowing that her efforts were making a difference. The challenges didn't stop coming, though. Layla faced moments of doubt, setbacks that made her question whether she was cut out for this path. There were days when the workload felt overwhelming, when the fear of failure seemed too heavy to bear. But each time, she reminded herself of the Rolls-Royce, the man who had asked her that one question, and of the commitment she had made to herself. She learned to push through, to take one step at a time, to focus on progress rather than perfection. Her journey was not just about skills or achievements, it was about transformation. She started seeing opportunities where she had once seen obstacles, possibilities where she had once seen limitations. Her mindset shifted from one of scarcity and fear to one of growth and possibility. She realized that change wasn't just about external circumstances, it was about how she perceived herself and her potential. Layla's relationships also began to evolve. She reconnected with her best friend, sharing her experiences and insights, inspiring her friend to pursue dreams that had been dormant. She built new connections through the workshops and meetings, finding mentors, collaborators, and peers who supported her journey. Each interaction enriched her perspective, teaching her lessons that went beyond textbooks or guides. By the end of the first few months, Layla could feel the tangible results of her hard work. She had developed new skills, gained confidence, and built a network of people who believed in her potential. More importantly, she had learned to believe in herself. The city streets, the metro stations, and the cafe no longer felt like limits, they were part of her journey, stepping stones toward a larger horizon. One evening, as Layla reflected on her progress, she realized how much she had changed since that first encounter. She remembered the man in the Rolls-Royce, the calm authority in his voice, and the simple question that had set everything in motion. She felt gratitude, not just for the opportunity, but for the challenge, the guidance, and the push to become a better version of herself. She understood that the journey was far from over, that there were still mountains to climb, lessons to learn, and obstacles to overcome. But Layla felt ready. She had discovered resilience, patience, and determination within herself. She had learned to trust her instincts, embrace challenges, and take risks. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, she welcomed that uncertainty. knowing that it was the gateway to growth and possibility. As she closed her notebook and looked out of her apartment window at the city below, Layla felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. She was no longer the same person who had hurried through the metro station, unnoticed and unsure. She had started a journey of transformation, one that had already changed the way she saw herself and the world around her. And she knew that with each new day, she would continue to grow, learn, and move closer to the life she had always dreamed of. Layla's life had begun to transform in ways she had never imagined. She woke up each day with a sense of purpose that fueled her actions and decisions. The routine that once felt monotonous now carried meaning, as every task she undertook was part of a larger goal. Her work at the cafe became a training ground for discipline and people skills. While her evenings were spent on projects, learning new skills, and preparing for the opportunities the man in the Rolls-Royce had promised her, one morning, as she walked toward the metro, she noticed the familiar crowd moving in predictable patterns. Commuters hurried, lost in their own worlds. But Layla felt different. She was no longer just another face in the crowd. She carried a quiet confidence that came from knowing her direction and purpose. Her gaze shifted to the street where she had first seen the Rolls-Royce, a smile touching her lips as she remembered the moment that had started it all. That memory had become a symbol of change, a reminder that one encounter could alter the course of a life. The man had begun introducing her to more advanced concepts. Beyond simple guidance, he encouraged her to think critically, to challenge her assumptions, and to explore opportunities she had never considered. Layla learned about investments, leadership, and strategy. But the lessons went deeper than business. They were lessons in life. She learned to navigate complex social dynamics, to manage her time efficiently, and to handle stress without losing composure. One day, he asked her to join him at a community project he was funding. Layla felt nervous. This was different from workshops and presentations. She was going to interact with people from diverse backgrounds, understand their challenges, and contribute solutions that could make a real difference. She realized that growth wasn't just about personal achievement, it was about impact and responsibility at the project site. She met individuals with stories that opened her eyes to struggles far beyond her own experiences. There were young people trying to overcome poverty, entrepreneurs striving to make a difference, and volunteers giving their time selflessly. Layla felt both humbled and inspired. She helped organize activities, facilitate discussions, and contribute ideas for sustainable solutions. It was a learning experience that stretched her abilities and perspective, making her realize that leadership wasn't just about knowledge, it was about empathy, action, and understanding. Back in her apartment that evening, Layla reflected on the day's events. She opened her notebook and wrote about what she had observed, the people she had met, and the lessons she had learned. Each entry reinforced her belief that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. She realized that fear and doubt were natural, but they no longer controlled her decisions. Instead, she approached challenges as opportunities to grow, knowing that each step forward built her resilience and confidence. As weeks passed, Layla's progress became evident to others. Her colleagues at the cafe noticed the change in her demeanor. She was more assertive, organized, and positive. Customers appreciated her attentiveness and warmth, and she began taking on small initiatives to improve the cafe's operations. Each accomplishment, no matter how small, reinforced the lessons she was learning and motivated her. To continue pushing forward, the man in the Rolls-Royce continued to challenge her in unexpected ways. One afternoon, he asked her to present a project she had been working on to a group of investors. Layla felt a surge of anxiety. This was a high-stakes situation, and the stakes felt much higher than any she had faced before. She spent days preparing, refining her presentation, and anticipating questions. She practiced speaking clearly and confidently, ensuring that she could communicate her ideas effectively. When the day arrived, Layla entered the room with her heart pounding, but she carried herself with newfound confidence. She presented her project with clarity and passion, addressing questions with honesty and composure. The investors were impressed, not just by the project, but by her ability to articulate her vision and demonstrate understanding. The man in the Rolls-Royce nodded approvingly, a subtle sign of recognition that meant more than words could express. Layla left the room with a sense of accomplishment, realizing that she had grown far beyond what she thought possible, beyond professional growth. Layla noticed changes in her personal life as well. She became more aware of her surroundings, more patient with others, and more intentional in her actions. Her friendships deepened as she shared her experiences and encouraged those around her to pursue their own growth. She found joy in small moments, appreciating the journey rather than solely focusing on the destination. The city streets, the metro stations, and the cafe that once felt ordinary now carried meaning and opportunity. One evening, she walked home. She passed the spot where she had first met the man. She saw the gleaming Rolls-Royce parked nearby, and for a moment, memories flooded back the question that had started it all, the fear and excitement she had felt, and the first steps she had taken toward change. Layla realized that the car itself was less important than the opportunity it represented. It symbolized possibility, courage, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. Her journey was not without challenges. There were moments of doubt, setbacks, and frustrations. Some projects didn't succeed as planned, and some lessons were difficult to internalize. Yet, each obstacle was an opportunity to learn, to adapt, and to grow. Layla understood that transformation was not a linear path. It was filled with twists, turns, and moments that tested resilience. And with each challenge she overcame, she felt stronger, more capable, and more determined. Through her experiences, Layla also developed a deeper understanding of leadership and influence. She learned that guiding others required listening, empathy, and patience. She observed how the man in the Rolls-Royce handled complex situations, made difficult decisions, and inspired people to reach their potential. She began applying these lessons in her interactions, whether at the cafe, the workshops, or the community project. Her ability to connect with people and motivate them grew, and she found satisfaction in seeing others succeed alongside her. As the months passed, Layla started thinking about her future in a way she never had before. She envisioned a life where she could combine her skills, passions, and values to create meaningful impact. She thought about starting her own venture, mentoring others, and contributing to causes she cared about. The fear that had once held her back was now tempered by knowledge, experience, and a growing belief in her capabilities. Layla's transformation was not just external, it was internal. She had developed patience, resilience, and a strong sense of self. She had learned to embrace uncertainty, take calculated risks, and approach challenges with a problem-solving mindset. She realized that success was not defined by wealth or status alone, but by growth, contribution, and the courage to pursue one's dreams. By the end of this stage of her journey, Layla felt a sense of readiness for the next chapter. The experiences, lessons, and challenges had prepared her for bigger opportunities and responsibilities. She was no longer the young woman who had hurried through the metro station, feeling invisible and uncertain. She was someone who had embraced change, faced her fears, and begun to shape her own destiny. As she walked through the city streets that evening, Layla felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. She paused at the metro station, reflecting on how far she had come and how much she had learned. The city that had once felt overwhelming now seemed full of potential. And as the sun set, casting warm light over the buildings and streets, Layla knew that this journey of transformation was ongoing, and that the best chapters of her life were yet to be written. Layla woke up with a sense of anticipation. Today felt different from all the other days she had lived through since that fateful morning at the metro station. Over the past months, she had grown in ways she'd never imagined. Every challenge, every lesson, and every moment of doubt had led her to this point. She could feel it in the way she carried herself, in the way her mind approached problems, and in the quiet confidence that now defined her. Her morning routine, once hurried and monotonous, now felt purposeful. She prepared a healthy breakfast, reviewed her notes and goals, and took a moment to reflect on how far she had come. The small apartment she lived in, the familiar streets she walked every day, even the metro station, all these places had become milestones in her journey. They reminded her of the first step she had taken, the moment she had said yes to change. As she left her apartment, The city seemed alive with new possibilities. People moved around her, lost in their own lives, but Layla noticed them differently now. She observed their expressions, their gestures, and their interactions, understanding that everyone had a story, a struggle, and a potential that often went unnoticed. She felt a connection to the city that she had never felt before, a sense that she was part of something larger. Walking toward the metro station, Layla thought about the opportunities that had come her way. The man in the Rolls-Royce had given her a chance to see her potential, but it was her dedication, perseverance, and courage that had transformed that opportunity into real change. She felt grateful for his guidance, but she also realized that the power to shape her life had always been within her. At the metro station, she paused for a moment, taking in the familiar surroundings. The crowd bustled around her, people rushing to their destinations, but Layla felt calm and centered. She remembered the question that had changed everything. Do you want your life to change? That simple question had sparked a journey of growth, learning, and transformation. It had forced her to look inward, confront her fears, and embrace possibilities she had once thought unattainable. Over the past months, Layla had not only grown professionally, but personally as well. She had taken on leadership roles in community projects, developed new skills, and built meaningful relationships. She had learned to communicate effectively, solve problems creatively, and inspire others through her actions. The confidence she had gained was visible in the way she interacted with people, in the way she approached challenges, and in the sense of purpose that guided her decisions. One afternoon, she received an invitation to meet the man again. To see how she had progressed and discuss the next steps in her journey, Layla felt a mixture of excitement and nerves as she approached the meeting. The Rolls-Royce, now a symbol of her journey, awaited her outside the building. She stepped inside, greeted him warmly, and they began to talk. The conversation was candid and insightful. He asked her about her experiences, her growth, and the lessons she had learned. Layla shared stories of her challenges, how she had overcome doubts, and how she had applied the guidance he had given her. She spoke about her successes and failures, acknowledging both with honesty and reflection. The man listened carefully, nodding and offering advice. But it was clear that the journey now belonged to her. He challenged her to think about the bigger picture, what she wanted her life to mean, the impact she wanted to have, and the legacy she wanted to leave. Layla realized that her journey was not just about personal success. It was about creating opportunities for others. It's inspiring people and contributing to the world in meaningful ways. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, understanding that her growth was a stepping stone for broader change. As they spoke, he shared stories of people he had mentored, individuals who had started from humble beginnings and gone on to achieve remarkable things. Layla listened intently, drawing inspiration and insight from their journeys. She understood that success was not measured solely by wealth or recognition, but by resilience, contribution, and the ability to inspire and uplift others. The man encouraged her to take the next big step, to start a project of her own, one that combined her skills, passions, and values. He emphasized that this would be challenging, requiring creativity, persistence, and strategic thinking. Layla felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension, knowing that this opportunity would test everything she had learned. But she also felt ready, confident in her abilities, and motivated by the possibility of making a meaningful impact. In the weeks that followed, Layla poured herself into her project. She spent long hours researching, planning, and connecting with people who could support her vision. She applied all the lessons she had learned: the discipline, the leadership skills, the strategic thinking, and the ability to inspire and motivate others. Every setback was met with determination, every challenge with creativity. She was no longer afraid of failure. She saw it as a necessary part of growth and learning. As the project began to take shape, Layla noticed the tangible results of her hard work. People responded positively to her ideas. Volunteers joined her cause, and the community started to see the benefits of her efforts. The impact was real, visible, and deeply rewarding. Layla felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that her journey of growth was now contributing to the growth of others. Through this process, She also learned the importance of balance and self-care. She maintained her routines, stayed connected with friends and family, and made time for reflection and gratitude. She understood that true success required not only achievement, but also well-being, relationships, and emotional resilience. This holistic approach allowed her to sustain her efforts, remain focused, and continue growing. One day, as she walked through the streets she had known for so long, she realized how much her perspective had changed. The city that once felt overwhelming and mundane now seemed full of opportunities and stories waiting to be discovered. She noticed the small acts of kindness, the determination of people pursuing their dreams, and the potential for change in every corner. Layla felt connected to the city and its people in a way she had never felt before. As her project gained momentum, she began mentoring others, sharing the knowledge and experience she had acquired. She found joy in guiding people, helping them overcome doubts, and celebrating their achievements. The sense of community and mutual growth became a source of inspiration, reinforcing her belief that success was not just personal, but collective. Months passed and Layla's project flourished. She had created something meaningful, something that made a real difference in people's lives. She reflected on her journey from the young woman hurrying through the metro, feeling invisible and uncertain, to the confident, capable individual she had become. She realized that her transformation was not just about the opportunities she had been given, but about the choices she had made, the effort she had invested, and the courage she had shown. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Layla returned to the metro station where it all began. She stood there for a moment, observing the bustling crowd, the familiar sounds, and the energy of the city. She thought about the man in the Rolls-Royce, the question he had asked, and the journey that had followed. A sense of gratitude filled her heart not just for the opportunities and guidance, but for the growth, resilience, and understanding she had gained. She realized that life was full of moments like that, moments that could change everything if one had the courage to embrace them. The Rolls-Royce, the metro station, and that one question were symbols of possibility, a reminder that change begins with a choice, and that growth comes from action, perseverance, and belief in oneself. Layla smiled, feeling a sense of peace and fulfillment. She knew that the journey was ongoing, that there would always be new challenges and opportunities, but she also knew that she was ready, equipped with the skills, mindset, and determination to face whatever lay ahead. The life she had once dreamed of was now within reach, and she was prepared to step forward with confidence, purpose, and hope. As the evening turned to night, Layla walked away from the metro station with a sense of accomplishment and anticipation. She had changed, not just in her circumstances, but in her understanding of herself and the world. The journey that began with a simple question had transformed her life, opening doors, shaping her character, and revealing her true potential. And as she continued forward, she carried with her the knowledge that every choice, every effort, and every moment of courage could create a life full of possibility, meaning, and growth.